Hello, welcome to 2021, and we're back. It's been a hiatus that I'm not proud of, but there's been a lot of things going on, cancellations of games, holidays, finals for some of us, not necessarily me. I'm a 35-year-old man, but finals, a lot of things going on, but we're back, and we plan to be regularly back here in the new year with Musings from the Mountains, your favorite long-loved, absent West Virginia podcast presented by WVSports.com. I'm managing editor Keenan Cummings. I also serve as the host of this, and I'm with my sidekick, Jared Sari. Wow. Just when you thought 2020 had given you enough strange things in sports, we opened 2021 with perhaps the strangest. Oscar Tshiebwe is no longer with the West Virginia basketball program. Go ahead and file that under the Sagaba Kanate file. Won't be back this year either. I think that's safe to assume he won't be back at all. Bob Huggins did not say that. Just said he wouldn't be back this year, but most expectations were that he was going to make the jump to the professional ranks regardless. I don't want to say that for sure. Again, I'm not going to speak for anybody, but I do think it was telling the way that Bob Huggins handled his press conference today that he is not expecting Tshiebwe back at all. Where do you file this one? Jared, in terms of weirdness from 2020 into this year? Is it top of the list?
Yeah, I would think it's up there. I thought it was funny. I read a tweet earlier today that said, today isn't January 1st, 2021. It's simply December 32nd, 2020. And I think that is the sentiment that a lot of WVU fans have today. The Liberty Bowl win, we'll get into that later. That was big yesterday, but, it immediately gets wiped, thrown aside, because Oscar Tshiebwe, former five-star recruit, he's the big news today. He's gone. Who knows? Who knows why, and who even really knows how this is going to affect the program moving forward. We'll know a little bit tomorrow when West Virginia tips off against Oklahoma, but it's a hell of a way to start off 2021.
Yeah, West Virginia fans feeling like Scarface kind of, Michael Corleone. I mean, you pull you out, they pull you back in with the bad news. Getting my Al Pacino references across there, but still, a really kind of tumultuous, sad ending in a way for a guy that really was a dominant basketball player as a true freshman last year. Was not the same this year. No one's going to argue that he was. You can point to reasons. Bob Huggins has tipped his hand a little bit about a less than ideal offseason. There's not really much more you can say. He was not playing with the same effort. His numbers were down. He honestly put together his strongest effort of the season, in my opinion, in the last game against Northeastern. It seemed like everything was riding. The ship was riding. The course was going the right way, and things fell apart. Obviously, here in quick fashion. I mean, he was talking a big game about turning things around, listening to Bob Huggins just a few days ago, and here we are. West Virginia has a major hole to fill in their lineup. You don't just replace somebody like that. Even a half, I would say a third of what you got last year, you don't just replace that. I do think it was interesting that Bob Huggins is kind of embracing spacing the floor. His answer to this was maybe some more Jalen Bridges at 4. Obviously, got to keep Gabe Asaboyan healthy now because you lost Isaiah Cottrell as well. We haven't even got into that. You lost Isaiah Cottrell. He was really starting to come on. He was a guy that probably would be the guy stepping into that role right now as a skilled big that could play in space, but he tore his Achilles. He's out for the year. You lose Tshiebwe a few days later, and this is a team that goes from as much front court depth as any in college basketball to quite literally none outside of inexperienced players. I think that when you look at this West Virginia team, I asked Huggins maybe 3 guards. He kind of shot it down a little bit, but I don't think he's going to have a lot of options. Probably going to have to use more 3-guard lineups, space the floor. Bridges is going to have to be that player that Huggins and everybody in the program talked about that he was last year. He elected to redshirt. He wanted to redshirt. He wasn't redshirted because of his skill set. And by the end of the year, everyone was talking about how impressive he was in practice. And it wasn't just Bob. It was anybody you talked to associated with the basketball program. He was going to be an impact player. That hasn't happened yet. Some of that's opportunity. He's going to get opportunity now. Is that who you think really could be the first kind of building block here, Jared?
See, I'm conflicted because I think Bob Huggins is in a very interesting spot right now. There are a lot of ways that he can move this starting five and really just the rotation moving forward. I think the logical fit obviously is Gabo Saboyan. I mean, I believe he started a game last year when there were some issues with the bigs. Um, but I mean, he does have those foul troubles is a consistent issue with him. Also logical would be, Taz Sherman. He is probably one of the more veteran guys, but I mean, he is a guard. And, Bob Huggins was not about that when you asked him. He wasn't really open to the idea. Jalen Bridges, again, very solid, dynamic player. We haven't seen much of him again with the red shirt. I think he could be a good fit. Ultimately, it's just going to be interesting, especially because, hoping that we have a March tournament or even a Big 12 tournament, this stretch of games, now that, conference play is getting in full swing, is going to be really interesting to see kind of what lineups Coach Huggins trots out there and ultimately trying to figure out what works.
Yeah, losing Tshiebwe is one thing with how he's played this year. You could pound that, but losing Cottrell too, and it's just tough for this basketball program right now. Still a lot of talent though. I mean, this is as talented of a roster, or was coming into the season in terms of star rankings. If you put stock in that Bob Huggins has had since he's been here. So these young guys, these inexperienced guys, are going to have to step up, and that's really all we can say about it right now. Strange end to a career that really looked like it was going to be special. If it is the end, I mean, we're all assuming that this will be it after Huggins pretty much slammed the door on any return this year. So didn't want to elaborate any further on it. I don't blame him. I mean, I don't think there's anything good that can come from that, but it's over, at least for now. It's over in a strange way for it to go out indeed. Switching gears, football. If you trusted the climb, you probably trusted a little bit more today. West Virginia really rallied and showed some mettle, showed some resolve yesterday in a game that I know many of you on Twitter thought they had lost. But you guys were blowing me up throughout the game about how poorly they were playing, how they had given up. They didn't. This team rallied. And just like we all projected at the starting of the year, starting quarterback Austin Kendall leading West Virginia to a bowl game win, right? Right? That's what we thought, right?
Yeah.
I just that storyline in itself is great. Austin Kendall, kind of the consummate teammate. He stuck his head in the game, stayed ready, stepped up when they needed to. He only completed 8 passes in the second half when he got in there for Jarrett Dagey, who clearly was struggling, played his worst game of the season. The one thing you could say about Jarrett Dagey this year is he did play mistake-free football and played well enough for them to win games. It was the exact opposite of that yesterday. That fumble, I still don't even know what happened on that fumble. That was one of the most mystifying plays I've ever seen a starting quarterback make in college football. But it cost him really his job for the rest of the game. And really credit to Kendall. I mean, they don't win that game without him. He provided a spark, completed 8 passes for 122 yards, a pair of touchdowns, one to Simmons, one to Mike O'Laughlin, tight end, and got West Virginia a big bowl win. Big in the sense that you don't want that Iowa State game to be the way that this team was remembered. I felt like they had to win this game to get some positive momentum, and they did it. I mean, what did you see, Jared?
Yeah, I 100% agree with you, especially the part about Austin Kendall. Terrific teammate. He's got a phenomenal head on his shoulders. It's easy to sit here after the fact, after he led West Virginia to the victory. It's easy to sit here and kiss the ground he walks on, but truly, after he, I think I vaguely remember last year in the season-ending TCU game, after he had already lost the starting job, essentially, there was a picture going around on Twitter about him running to the locker room after the game, kind of not hanging out with the team and celebrating the win. And so that's how he ended last year. This year, he ends it, and it really ends his WVU career coming in, leading West Virginia to a bowl win. It was tremendous to watch. Probably one of my favorite games to watch this season. Um, nice to see a bit of Neil Brown's climb pay off And it's just nice to see that the Mountaineers are continuing that upward trend when, there were a lot of times this season when it really didn't seem like they were really moving at all or even just moving backwards.
Yeah, I cannot give enough credit to the West Virginia defensive staff. You hear it a lot, and it's cliche at this point. Yeah, that is a really tough offense to prepare for. You don't see it. You hardly ever see it. If you do see it, usually you have an entire offseason or 4 or 5 weeks at worst to prepare for it. And they did an excellent job. Army made some adjustments, started going with the hard count because West Virginia was jumping the snap, got to the outside more when West Virginia would play a 4-down front. But you can't say enough the effort that Jamil Adai and Jordan Leslie were able to get out of this defense all year. A lot of people thought Vic Koenig leaving would be the death of this defense, and they not only performed well, they elevated their play over last year. So a lot of credit to those guys that were put in a difficult situation, and they made it work. And never was that more apparent than in this bowl game. You look at what Army did. They had 149 yards on 2 drives. I think they had 90 yards on their next 9. And one of those scoring drives, they got the ball basically on the shadow of the goal line. So defense really did their work. Really did work and kept West Virginia in the game when the offense was really misfiring at times, especially even in the second half. Kendall had a couple drives that were 3 and out when West Virginia missed some momentum plays. Looking into 2021, I said this was an important win, and I really do believe that. I think West Virginia getting to 6 wins in a shortened season like this is incredible. You wish they could have had more if you're a West Virginia fan. They probably should have had more if you're a West Virginia fan, but they didn't. You don't get them back. If you lose a game, you don't get them back. Just like if you steal one, you don't. The other team doesn't get it back either. That's just the way college football works. Texas Tech will loom over this season. There's no doubt about that. I know people are going to be sitting there, fist clenched, wondering what could have been had you won that game. But they did win the game against Baylor. They blew out Kansas State, and they had some good wins. They took care of TCU at home. So it wasn't perfect, but it definitely was a step in the right direction. When I look at this team, holistically, they got a lot better at running the football. They got a lot better at in the red zone on offense or defense. And those were 2 of the areas that West Virginia had to improve on heading into next year or heading into this year. You look at next year, got to get more consistent quarterback play. I think we all understand that. I do think West Virginia can win with Jarrett Doege. I wouldn't be opposed if they look at the transfer portal. If a good guy falls into your lap, you don't turn him away. That's just the way today's college football works. But I think they can win with him. He has to play better and be more decisive. I think that was a big issue with him against Army, was not nearly as decisive as he's been, and really kind of struggled making his reads and going through his progressions, held on to the football too long and let bad things happen. Got to be able to get more consistent play out of your wide receivers. There's talent there, and guys are getting open. You got to catch the ball, and you got to be able to deliver the ball to the guys when they're open. You got to get that. Got to find a linebacker. I think transfer portal will be big for West Virginia this offseason. You've already seen that in Doug Nestor. Not very often. That's kind of an overstatement itself. You never can add a player that started 17 games over 2 seasons and still have 3 years of eligibility left. It'd be shocking to me if he doesn't start for West Virginia next year. I don't say this lightly. I think that's as good of a transfer as West Virginia has added in quite some time, just given his skill level, his experience, what he's got left, and all of that, especially filling a need. He's going to play either right guard or right tackle, and that fills a major hole for West Virginia with Mike Brown leaving and some other guys possibly on the fence. You get Alonzo Adai back. You definitely get Evan Staley back, and we're going to get, I think, around 3 more seniors, although those have not been announced yet. Still, a lot of room to be excited for West Virginia in 2021. I think that when I look at it, now I want to get your thoughts as well, but when I look at it, I think that this is really the first year coming up where you can really judge West Virginia in terms of some of the heavyweights in the conference. I feel like it took a while. You had to build the program up a little bit because Dana left with a lot of seniors gone. So you had to play a lot of transfers or a lot of newcomers. This is year 3. West Virginia's got to win. I hate setting an arbitrary number, but you want to see this team win 8 games at least in 2021.
Yeah, 100%. You look at this team heading into next year is, I mean, most of the guys making up the team are guys that Neil Brown himself brought in. He's not dealing with Dana Holgerson's bear cupboard or anything like that. So now you can truly start to evaluate what Neil Brown has done for this program and what he means to this program. You can evaluate uh, whether this finish was a bit of a mirage, if you can even call it that, or whether it was, the first step toward becoming, a New Year's Six contender, a Big 12 championship contender. Um, the Mountaineers showed a lot of good things this year, but they also showed a lot of things that they need to improve on, like you alluded to, the kicking, quarterback, offensive line should be set. Need to find a linebacker. But they are definitely, I don't think there's anybody who would disagree that West Virginia is in a much better place now than they were a year ago today.
Yeah, you look at this team, and I think Neil Brown said this perfectly, and it really summed it up to me. You move from the bottom of the third to the middle. Now you got to try to move to the top. That's going to be the goal for this team all offseason. You got 5 scholarships left to play with to fill some holes with transfers. Obviously, you could have more roster movement depending on what happens, but you're starting to get to the point where you can see a little bit of light at the end of the tunnel. You're not quite there yet, and I don't want to fool anybody into thinking I think they are, but it's definitely moving in the right direction, which is what you wanted to see out of this year, even with all the cancellations, the postponements, the adjustments, everything you had to show progress. And it's hard to argue that a 6-4 season and a bowl win when you only played 10 games, it's a good year. I think it is a good year, and I projected at the start of the year if they hit 6, you can't be disappointed, and I truly believe that. But happy New Year to everybody! We'll be doing this a lot more regularly here coming soon. I hope you tune in. I hope you enjoy what we do. I'll work on getting my Al Pacino references correct, and I'll see you here soon. Thank you for tuning in again to another edition of Musings from the Mountains.